radio TV phono nut, and I'm in the process of taking apart a General Electric battery operated portable tube radio from probably about 1938, 39, 40, somewhere around in there. The case is in pretty good shape. This handle is rotten and needs to be replaced somewhere down the road. Everything was going smoothly as far as getting it apart until we came to the speaker here. 2 5/16 nuts holding it on right there, and I thought it would just slide out. Well, wrong. There's another one right up here behind this transformer. Behind this right here, which means you can't get to it with a regular 5/16 driver. The only way I'm going to get that off is maybe with an open end wrench, and the way it's down in here, it's even going to be hard to even use one of those. So real stupid move, GE. You could have put the transformer somewhere else, or put the third mounting bolt somewhere else, or better yet, just let two do it. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So rather than lose my cool over it, I've already placed a 9-volt battery across these terminals, and I get a nice healthy click from the speaker, so that confirms that the output transformer and voice coil are good. And from what I can see, I don't see any cone damage, so we'll just leave the speaker in the case and use alligator clip leads to connect the speaker to the chassis for testing purposes. Okay, here's the chassis, off on volume control, and then our tuning knob here, which is direct drive. Thankfully, no string to break. And at one time, there was a paper decal that was glued to this knob that indicated the stations, but that's long gone. I don't know if anybody makes a reproduction of that or not. If they don't, then we just won't have any station indication. Just tune the thing until you get to the station you want to hear. Chassis looks relatively okay, just needs a good cleaning. I've already looked at the tubes. 3 of the 4 appear to be GE originals. This detector and first audio tube is an Emerson, so obviously a replacement. Here's the underside of the chassis, and as far as I can tell, it's unmolested. I really can't see any evidence of repair right offhand, which is really not surprising because a lot of these battery-operated portable radios were pretty reliable except for tube burnouts, etc. Whoever had this probably used it for 10, 15 years, and by that time AC sets were pretty common. AC power was common, and for those who wanted a portable radio, transistor radios were starting to come on the scene, so this one probably just got shoved in a closet and forgot about. And I'd be willing to bet that if I put juice to this, it will probably play, at least to some extent, which we'll find out here in just a minute. This requires, I believe it requires 1.5 volts for the filaments and 90 volts for the B+ voltage, which we can get from our power supply. Okay, speaker is connected via clip leads. We have the radio plugged into our old school power shifter, Silvertone power shifter, aka AC power supply that was made back in the 40s and 50s to allow these battery operated sets to run on AC power, and we're about to flip the switch and see what happens. I hear static in the speaker that sounds like it's trying to pick up something. Let's try to tune across the dial here. Bear with me while I tilt this up a bit. Yeah, we're getting something.
Operate. Dollar Shave Club, which is now at a store near you, has got designed For daily shavers,
Now that sounds very, very distorted.
that's frequent shavers with
I bet if I was to check the control grid voltage on my audio output tube, it would probably be positive. Alright, looking at the grid, control grid on the output tube, and yes, we have a positive voltage there, 0.3, 0.4. Let's get on the other side and see what's on the plate. 38 volts on the plate of the first audio tube. Okay, let's see what we have on the plate of the output tube. 53 volts, that's kind of low. I'd be willing to bet you this filter is probably leaky and choking the voltage down. This coupling cap from the plate to the grid to the output tube could also be, well, we know it's leaky, but it could be over-biasing the tube and turning it full on, which would load down the B+ voltage. Well, when I turn it off, you can hear the volume spike up just for a few seconds there. So, yeah, that's probably one of these bypass capacitors. I'm going to look heavily at this coupling cap here and this electrolytic bypass capacitor on the 90 volt line. Okay, I disconnected the grid end of that coupling capacitor, and our B+ at the plate of the output tube jumped up to 88 volts. So what does that tell us? That tells us this capacitor is indeed extremely leaky and turning this output tube full on, which is placing a heavier load on the power supply, which is choking down our B+ voltage. And over time, that tube being turned full on can not only stress the tube, it can stress the audio output transformer and burn it out. And those transformers and battery sets like this are usually wound with very, very fine wire, and it don't take much to burn them out. So let's check the voltage at the grid end of this capacitor disconnected, see what we got. Well, if you'd make connection, but yeah, we have about 42 volts, so that capacitor is extremely leaky, and we need to just go ahead and replace it now. Alright, there's our new capacitor. It sounds a lot better. Let's see what our B+ voltage is, our plate voltage is on the audio output tube with a good capacitor. 89 volts.
It was his old 401k, and he rolled it over into a self-directed when he retired. And
that just proves that these old leaky coupling capacitors, when they're bad leaky, they can severely load down. They can just throw everything off and load down the power supply, and over time, they can cause all kind of problems. In the plate bypass capacitor, I have the ground end disconnected. Other end still connected to the plate, and our power supply capacitors are still discharging. We're reading 28 volts on the ground side. Let's see what we got on the other side. 41 volts. So yeah, that capacitor is very leaky too. All of them are going to be, and they're all going to get replaced while we're in here.
Off the Apple Store by Apple.
Okay, got all the caps changed, and I replaced the battery cable because the old one had some cracks in it. For now, I went ahead and resoldered the
political correctness running amok. YouTube, Google, Facebook, and Twitter.
For right now, I resoldered the original battery plugs to the cable, but I may remove those and put something else on there because, of course, the original type batteries hadn't been in production in decades, and the female jack that these plugs plug into, to my knowledge, are unavailable. So I may end up just replacing those with something more modern that I can use to plug into a new battery pack or power supply. I'd have to make my own battery pack with a string of 9-volt batteries and a couple of D cells for the wired in parallel for the filament voltage. Don't get your hopes up. That's just bumper music for a talk show. We'll turn it off until that's over with. But Anyway, what I want to do now is what I call the filament threshold test. One thing I found out with these battery radios, that when the tubes become borderline, particularly the 1A7 oscillator mixer tube, the tube may work normally when you're hitting it with 1.5, 1.6 volts on the filament, but whenever it drops down to, say, 1.3 volts, the oscillator tube will stop working. So what I want to do is measure our filament voltage and then drop the incoming AC line voltage to our power supply, which will of course lower the filament voltage since this is not a regulated supply. And I want to make sure the set will still operate down to around 1.4, 1.3, 1.2 volts down in that area. Alright, it still plays down to 1.1 volts, and that's fine. As long as if it'll play down that low, then the tubes should all be in good shape. Now, of course, it's not as loud as it was because not only is our filament voltage going down, our B+ voltage is going way down too. So, and now I need to clean the tuning condenser plates. They're a little dirty. And once we do that, I think we're ready to perform an alignment on it, and then it should be good to go, and we can slide it back in the cabinet. Alright, in this kludged up mess. Okay, we're ready to do the alignment. I've cleaned the tuning condenser and got the static out of it. First we need to do the IF alignment. That's adjusting these two transformers here. You got two trimmers per transformer. They want us to tune the dial to the top end, set the signal generator to 455 kilocycles, connect the ground end of the signal generator to the chassis and the hot side to the grid of the 1A7 converter tube through a 0.05 microfarad capacitor, and keep the generator output only high enough for a usable reading, and peak out these 4 trimmers for maximum. Okay, let's see what happens. That's kind of tough. It's also kind of off too. Alright, let's turn the signal generator down. And let's do this one. This thing was way off. Turn the generator down. And let's turn the... Okay, now it's on to the first IF transformer. Well, these are tight, or hard to turn. Turn the generator down. And then lastly, let's do the remaining trimmer here. Oh yeah. Now we're going to turn the generator down even further and go back through these and peak them out for maximum. Okay, now that the IF is done, they want us to do these 3 trimmers under here, and they want us to put the chassis back in the cabinet, mainly because they want the chassis to be in as close to, and the antenna to be in close to normal operating position as possible. And they want you to be able to look at the dial pointer on the front of the cabinet. Well, since our dial scale is missing, there's really not a whole lot we can do for the oscillator alignment. We can do what we can, but we have this trimmer here is for the low end oscillator adjustment, the low end of the band. This trimmer here is for the high end of the band, and then this third trimmer is for your RF. Okay, generator's tuned to 1500. We're just radiating a signal into the loop antenna, and I'm going to peak this trimmer out for maximum. And it looks like nothing is changing, so we're going to just leave it about right there where it was. And I'm just about ready to turn the generator off and do a band scan and see how we do. Alright, I'm connected to the outdoor antenna. Getting something at the top end of the dial. Sounds like a black gospel station that I've never received. Probably 1490.
Would be Rick. Does he have a preference? Because fire appeared. One significant job open. Justin, thank you. Always good to have you on. Come back soon.
There's another country station from somewhere.
About history, let facts be your friends, even though we're scared.
There's something very weak.
He wants to be a distributor.
What's this? See, this is bumper music or a real station. No, it's some bumper music crap.
I think just from a basketball standpoint.
You can forget picking up anything on the lower end of the dial because of all this noise that I have yet to determine where it's coming from. Okay, I think I'm about ready to put this back in the case. I found this, what's left of the old dial scale inside the case, but there's not much really left there for me to do anything with, so I think GE used these thumb wheel tuning knobs on several different models, so I'll look and see if anybody makes a reproduction scale for them. And if they do, I'll order one of these days, and then we can properly align the oscillator trimmers on this thing. And as you can see on the bottom of the cabinet, this is the access cutout for the trimmer adjustments. And these three holes are to access the chassis mounting bolts. And this cutout is to access the external antenna connector. Alright, we got it back together and we're running it off with the power supply. I had some difficulty here because this tuning shaft or the knob or something was deformed and it was rubbing on the cabinet and the escutcheon here, which is why they ought to widen the holes just a little bit wider to compensate for such instances. I finally got it to where it's still hanging up a little bit at the top, but
first round the Dolphins.
It's the best I can do with it. And like I've said about other radios I fixed, this will probably go up on the shelf and never be turned on again because of this.
We're involved in this trade.
And this. And this.
A veteran that would support until that young quarterback is ready to go. And
nothing on any of those four stations that I give a rat's behind about listening to. You know, I still enjoy fixing these things up and hearing them play again, but past that, that's about the end of it. It's about 3:15 in the afternoon, and I'm picking up what I believe is WDIA 1070 out of Memphis on the internal loop, so that's pretty good. Yep. That's it. Bringing my hand up closer to the loop brings it in even better. And I think that's the oldies station out of Tuscaloosa. And that's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I think this is KAAY in Little Rock, which is a Southern Gospel station. And we're just on the internal loop. And the reason it's dark is because we don't need interference from the fluorescent light.
Federal or state departments of education or school boards, and they would like to keep matters of ratings and accountability as local as possible. The survey also reveals that majority of business
I have to go home. You know, and it's just like they, you know, when you're 6 months old and you can 11 years up, and Papa Dave's gonna bounce you off.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey, I'm about getting burnt out on him too. I can tell you how to stay out of debt, just don't spend. Don't have to listen to him to figure that out. If you don't have the money to buy something, then don't buy it. There's some music coming from somewhere, but very faint. But yeah, this is about the only good I get out of AM radio is the late evening and nighttime DX. Obviously, there are other areas with music stations, just not in my area. Well, not music that I care to hear.
Most of the time. Do you feel neglected?
This radio has a good sound for a battery set.
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or...
Overmodulated Southern Gospel station.
Pay off all your debt?
Imagine feeling the freedom of 20/20 vision without the hassle of... I mean, seriously, what a pleasant morning. The sun is shining and the birds are chirping. You seem to be in a good mood today. Astute observation.
He's probably happy because he found out Honey Nut.
It's a special time when
okay, give me a station ID.
And I'm Fox 13 meteorologist Elizabeth Diamorin. We'll see you isolated showers throughout the afternoon, possibly some patchy freezing rain for areas north of Shelby County. As we go throughout the evening, though, the freezing rain potential increases, and we could also start to see some ice accumulations overnight into Thursday. Travel could be hazardous. Check in tonight with us on Fox 13 at 5 for the latest.
As a dentist, I know what my patients are saying.
I don't care.
She says her gums
Get
are here.
something out of town.
Call them and tell them you can go to another...
The Meridian's Urban Gospel Authority. I have another name for it, but if I used it, I would probably get kicked off of YouTube. Another poorly sounding AM station, probably because they're not even concentrating on their AM. They just keep the AM going so they can have the FM translator.
Military.com.
No purchase necessary. Open to legal residents at 50 United States and D.C. 18 years and over only. Begins January 20th.
WDIA. And as you can't let that play long, but as you can tell, you get a properly engineered AM station and have a decent receiver, it can sound very much listenable. And I think part of the reason AM has declined so much is probably a combination of things. Number one, poorly engineered stations that sound like crap. Number two, poorly designed modern receivers that sound like crap. Number three, the stuff that's on AM, people get burnt out on it real quick. You know, try doing something different instead of the usual syndicated talk or black gospel or whatever, and as in some live local talent, news and weather, and DJs playing music that people actually want to hear, and not the same 20 songs over and over again. You know, do that, broadcast that on a properly engineered station, and you know, people might listen. Alright, that's about all I've got for this one right now. At a later date, I'll replace this handle, and I'll rig up some kind of battery pack so we can use this as a portable radio. And on batteries, our performance might be a little bit better, as we won't be picking up some of the noise that's coming in on the AC power line. And for right now, that's about it.
With a heart-shaped box of Russell Stover's. Something called pesticides. Yeah, Chris?
Reverse
osmosis to get the mostest out of your drinking water?
All right, shut up.